Hello and welcome back to Sandra's Shelf, where it talks all things books, writing, mental health, everything in between, basically everything that I feel like and that relates to a shelf that could be writing, reading, and discovering life. So today we have something very exciting, and it's my book haul based on the TV show and also the game, I would say, The Last of Us. And so I went kind of crazy. I fell in love and I'm obsessed with the TV show. I watched it, I binge watched it with my mom. We cried, we sobbed, we loved it, and it just like rekindled my entire love for, post-apocalyptic novels and post-apocalyptic stories. And it just turns out that when I was watching the show, it was at the same time that I was filming my series on pandemic books and what I think about the pandemic 3 years later, and unpacking that trauma and that global event that we all went through. So I actually have some pandemic books still in here, and I think that they tie really well into The Last of Us because it's all about like a certain kind of disease or plague that has changed humanity globally. Without further ado, let's get in. I have 2 boxes from BookOutlet, but there's not that many books in them, so we're gonna go quickly through these. And then I also have books that I was collecting throughout the weeks, and so we'll also get to those books in another clip or in the next days. So let's start with the first box. So we're starting off strong with this first book that was actually recommended on the LitHub website, that we're writing about the books that you should read if you liked or hated The Last of Us. So this book was on the list, and I think I have most of the books on that list because I'm going to be filming a reading vlog. So this one is Entangled Life: How Fungi Make Our Worlds, Change Our Minds, and Shape Our Futures by Merlin Sheldrake. And I actually knew about this book and I heard about this book when it first released, I think about a year and a half, 2 years ago. No, actually, I think it was 2 years ago in 2021, and I've been waiting to find a copy online to buy it, but I didn't want to pay the full price, so thankfully it was on BookOutlet, and it was on the perfect time to get it, so I snatched it up right away. This is all about fungi, and I think this is gonna be an amazing and eye-opening read because this is one of the things in the world that we don't know enough about, and I think it's gonna be so cool to read. And it actually goes into explaining cordyceps. So this one talks about cordyceps actually, because cordyceps are an actual fungi. So can't wait to read that and come back with my thoughts and opinions. Then we got Bushcraft 101, a field guide to the art of wilderness survival by Dave Canterbury. And to be honest, I got this one because I saw it on the survival list online, and my book is post-apocalyptic / survival in the wilderness, so I find that this was going to be the perfect book, and this one is really highly acclaimed and highly rated, so I got this one. I also got Notes on Grief by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, and the reason why I got this is that she talks about grief right after the pandemic, and it's like, I think it's little notes and stories or just notes about grief, and I really wanted to pick this up to begin with, and I think I'm going to be exploring some grief in my novel as well, so I just felt like this was really timely. And the people in The Last of Us and in the pandemic, like I can't like see them separate from themselves. Like for me to like both playing in my head, and that's what my novel is playing in my head. A lot of people have lost people, a lot of people have fallen ill, and grief is a really poignant element here, and it actually changes your life and changes how you see life, and it changes how you approach relationships moving forward. So I think grief is one of the big topics to explore when thinking of things like the pandemic, The Last of Us, and any post-apocalyptic type of world or novel, etc. Then I also got My Abandonment by Peter Rock, and it actually was blurred by Ursula K. Le Guin, who said, "A beautiful, strange novel, fascinating and moving. It tells with great tenderness how human love goes wrong." And the reason why I picked this one up is when I was doing research, I was trying to find tales of father-daughter relationship living in the wild, and this one came up, and this one is actually based on a true story, how a father was living in the preserve of Portland, Oregon with his daughter, so it's a forest park, and then they get taken out of that situation. And I believe there is also a movie on this, so I really the movie is called Leave No Trace, so I really want to read this, and then I really want to watch the movie. It's a very short novel, and I think it's going to inspire my writing 101%, and it has that theme of like father-daughter, or like a relationship to a parent that is trying to help you survive, but that's also traumatized, which also goes back to Joel and Ellie in The Last of Us. So perfect book, and no one talks about this, so maybe I'll be the one to talk about this book. I got 2 other books in this book box, but I'm just gonna go through them quickly because they don't have anything to do with this theme, and it's by the same author, and it's Cleopatra as well as The Witches by Stacy Schiff, and literally both paperback copy, and they match and they're beautiful, and I've heard so many great things about these 2 books throughout the years, and I just didn't want to buy the hardcover for $40. So when I saw these 2, I was like, wow, it's my lucky day. I'm adding these to my cart, and this one is actually autographed apparently, so that's so exciting. I had no idea. Let's see if it is autographed. It is! Oh my goodness, so cool. But yeah, those 2, I'm gonna read them in the future. It's, you know, about historical events. You have, first of all, Cleopatra, and The Witches is literally following like the suspicion, betrayal, and hysteria in 1692 Salem. So can't wait to read these 2. Now we made it to the second box, and these are all the pandemic / plague books that I was talking about that have come out in decades past and recently. So let's open this up. So let's start first with this book, and it's called The World Without Us by Alan Wiesman, and this is actually the book apparently that also inspired The Last of Us. I don't know, I can't find the direct quote anymore, but I was looking online and someone on Reddit had said that this had inspired the creators of the game The Last of Us, and I think it makes sense because it's, again, similar theme. It's talking about the world with us humans in it, and it's basically a survey through, you know, worlds past and present. And honestly, this seems like a really cool book to read, and it goes through like historical events and what it would be without having wars, without having us on the planet, etc. So can't wait to read this. I've never heard anyone else talk about this one, but I'm so glad that I found a copy because it's so rare to find what you're looking on BookOutlet. So when you see the chance, you have to take it, and I took my chance so hard because wow. So now we're getting into the pandemic literature side. So the first book I have here is Afterland by Lauren Bukes, I think, and I read the synopsis of this one, and it also takes place in a pandemic world, and I think this was published maybe in 2022. It says 12-year-old Miles is one of the last boys alive, and his mother Cole will protect him at all costs. On the run after a horrific act of violence and pursued by Cole's ruthless sister Billy, all Cole wants is to raise her kid somewhere he won't be preyed on as a reproductive resource or a sex object or a stand-in son, someplace like home. So I like that this is also like talking about what it's like to, you know, use people for reproduction, and I feel like it's very on brand with what's happening in America right now. The only thing is that the script has shifted, and it's a young boy that is the last boy on earth, or man on earth. So this is going to be a very interesting novel, I can already tell, and I can't wait to read it. It's blurred by so many good authors like Chuck Wendig, Ben Winters, and Stephen King, so can't wait to read this, and apparently it's scary as hell. Then I got The Fell by Sarah Moss, and I actually remember Ariel Bissett from the podcast Books Unbound talking about this one, and I totally forgot about it. I had heard this back in November when I was driving a lot and I was listening to podcasts, and it totally flew my mind when I was making my list of pandemic books, so I'm gonna have to add this one as well. And it's basically this woman who is not supposed to go out because it's the national like lockdown and no one should go out, but then she goes out of her, I think, cottage, and she gets lost, and it just shows like what a selfish act does. So like, you know, in the moment where everyone is already stressing and doing other things, something that she shouldn't have done has led into something bigger. And I think it's very reflective to how people reacted during the pandemics and the lockdown, and I am very interested in reading this one, and plus it's very short. Then we got another fiction book, and it's The Premonition, a pandemic story by Michael Lewis, and I've never heard of this, but apparently everyone is raving about this on Goodreads. So it says here, Michael Lewis's taut and brilliant nonfiction thriller pits a brand of medical nonfiction thriller? Okay, I guess. Visionaries against the wall of ignorance that was the official response of the Trump administration to the outbreak of COVID-19. The characters you will meet in these pages are as fascinating as they are unexpected. So I guess it's like nonfiction in the way that it explores the pandemic and the real events, but fiction in the way that it takes few characters and puts them in the situation. I really can't wait to read this one, and I'm glad that I saw this one on BookOutlet because I would have not picked this up. I would have not ever heard of this book, but then I started researching it and it looks like it's amazing. Another pandemic book, but now this time it's really nonfiction, and it's 10 Lessons for a Post-Pandemic World with a New Afterword by Fareed Zakaria. And yeah, I saw this one. It had really good reviews, and it's about COVID-19 and lessons that we can learn from it. I think this is going to be really helpful for my research for the pandemic reflections after 3 years, as well as my post-apocalyptic book. And finally, we come to the last book of the BookOutlet portion unboxing part, and it's Pale Horse, Pale Rider by Catherine Ann Porter. And I heard a lot about this when I was, looking up books about pandemics in the last 2-3 years, and I finally got my hands on a copy. And this was published actually in 1939. So apparently it contains 3 outstanding short novels, Old Morality, Noon Wine, and the title story, which is Pale Horse, Pale Rider. I do believe it has to do with the plague, but I'm not too sure. It's not saying anything here about it, but this is one of the books that keeps coming up every time I research books that have pandemic, disease-like, plague-like themes. So I can't wait to read this one and come back and report back in my next video, which will be exploring the pandemic. So these were all the 12 books in this BookOutlet section of this book haul, and I will link them all down below. Please bear in mind that 2 of these books are not part of this section. They were just part of the book haul, so yeah, I'll still link them down below in case you're curious. So I'm gonna link everything, but we will continue because I got more books that are related to The Last of Us and my pandemic project, as well as my post-apocalyptic novel, which is basically inspired by the pandemic and inspired by The Last of Us. So I'll see you soon in 5 seconds with more books. Welcome back. I just wanted to share the last of the Last of Us book haul related book haul. What? Anyways, that's too much to say at once. And yeah, I'm just gonna share the last books that I bought, that I'm currently reading, and etc. So some of these are kind of like closely related without really being actually related. It was just like while I was shopping for these type of books. But first we're gonna start with the nature books. So we have Islands of Abandonment, Nature Rebounding in the Post-Human Landscape by Cal Flynn, and this was one of the books of the few books that I collected that was recommended by LitHub for The Last of Us. So I am actually a third way in and I'm loving this so much. I didn't know that nature books would be my next favorite thing, but they are, because then I also got Finding the Mother Tree, Discovering the Wisdom of the Forest by Suzanne Simard. And oh my god, this is like potentially my favorite book of the year so far. I'm like a quarter in and it's just amazing. It's so good. It's so poetic. Like, I can't believe that people can write about nature and the forest and make me like fall in love with them, if that makes sense. But I'll talk more about these books in my Last of Us reading vlog, and that's gonna come up shortly after this one, so stay tuned. I will be back and I will share more thoughts and opinions, but these are the 2 that I picked up specifically for that. Then I finally picked up the Broken Earth series by N.K. Jemisin, and it's the 3 books in the Broken Earth series. I've always wanted to pick these up, but I never wanted to like pay the price. So they were actually on special on Chapters Indigo, so I was like, this is my time to shine. I don't think I'm gonna read these for like Last of Us pandemic books. I'll probably read them next year when I'm like ready to read more like environmentalist pandemic books, because that's another branch. So just because I have like over 25, no, actually I have like 30 books to get through and read by the end of April, so that's just too much. I can't add these as well. So, but I did get them and I'm so excited to read them because everyone has loved her books. And I think it follows a mother looking for her daughter after something happens with, there's like a 5th season in this world, and the 5th season can be controlled by certain people, and it's because of climate change and whatnot. That's what so far I know about the series. I don't want to know any more because I want to discover it on my own. But yeah, I'll definitely be linking all these books down below as usual. 2 other books that I got that are pandemic related and also kind of for lovers of The Last of Us. We have The Bear by Andrew Krivak, and this one follows a father and daughter relationship as they navigate the post-apocalyptic landscape, so that's really exciting, and it looks really short, and I'm probably gonna read it in one sitting. And then we also got The Book of M by Peng Shepherd, and this one is like a post-apocalyptic, but it follows a couple, and I think the husband is trying to find his wife, and a lot of like uproar is happening. Like there are bandits, there's a war. I love the cover, it's so pretty. And I feel like when the pandemic first hit in our world, people were reading this book, but I haven't seen it as much as the other pandemic books, so I can't wait to pick this up and see what it's all about. Now, these are a few books that I picked up for my own post-apocalyptic / pandemic book, and I got Edible and Medicinal Plants of Canada. Please do not ask why. I just really want to learn my plants, which ones we can eat, which ones we should stay clear of in different parts of Canada where I live. And my novel is potentially going to be set either in BC or in Ontario. I feel like I should set it in Ontario because I have another novel that's set in BC, and I should, you know, represent where I'm living. So either Quebec, either Ontario, because I've lived in those 2 provinces my whole life. So I don't know, but I can't wait to read this, and I love how it's like beautifully illustrated as well. I think this is finally gonna be the defining moment where I'm actually gonna know the differences between plants and shrubs, and I don't know, shrubs, trees, vines, herbs, grasses, etc. And yeah, I just can't wait to like flex my knowledge in the coming years. Then we got 2 books by my favorite. You guys already know she's my mom, so I had to support my mother. So we have Old Babes in the Wood by Margaret Atwood. I don't know if this has anything to do with the woods because it's a story collection, like a short story collection, and I had pre-ordered this anyways, so it just so happened that it came at the same time with everything else. I love the cover, so beautiful. Cats, I love cats, and this magenta, love that color. I just know that this is gonna be amazing, and I can't wait to read it. But we also got Survival by Margaret Atwood, and it's a thematic guide to Canadian literature. And this is the Canadian literature that like has to do with wilderness, has to do with surviving, you know, the cold winters, because she's gonna go through Susanna Moody, she's gonna go through Marie-Claire Blais. And the reason why I know about this book, and the reason why like no one talks about this, is because obviously it's very literary thematic to Canadian literature. But when I took my Canadian literature class like 4 years ago, oh my god, I'm getting old. 3rd year of university, pandemic happened, 3 years has passed. 4th year, was it 4th year or 3rd year? 4th year? 4 years ago. So yeah, and it's been on my Chapters Indigo cart since. I ordered it on Chapters, it was out of stock. I was crying. Then I went to Amazon because I had tried Prime while I was publishing, and then I ordered it from Prime and I got it the next day, and I was so happy. So I can't wait to read this. This is so niche. I don't think anyone is gonna be reading this, but maybe I could be the one to spark interest. I love survival novels, I love Canadian literature, I love Margaret Atwood, and it's just the perfect time to pick this up while I'm doing all this post-pandemic work for my own novel and for the upcoming videos that I'll be filming for you guys. So it could not be a more perfect time. Then I got After the Flood, which is another I can't say pandemic anymore. Pandemic. Okay. Then I got After the Flood, which is another pandemic-like book, and it's by Cassandra Montag. And I do believe this is a mother and daughter, not a father and daughter this time. And she is trying to like look for her daughter, or like they're on a journey. There's a big flood, things happen, and it's near the Arctic Circle. So that's gonna be fun to read. I heard some things about this book last year and then it never resurfaced again, so I'm glad I found a copy, and it was really cheap. It was like $8 at Chapters and hardcover, and I was like, this is my time to shine. I don't know why things are happening for the good, but they finally are. So I know I'm being dramatic, but you know when you like really want a certain type of book and it's on special that specific time, like what had happened with the Broken Earth series, I was like, it's meant for me to buy. Like, I wanted to buy it. It's on special when I want to buy it, so I have to buy it because then I will regret it. So, Anyways, at this point I will do and say anything to justify my really intensive buying habits. Then I also got no, not that one, that's her other book, Saving Time, Discovering a Life Beyond the Clock by Jenny Odell. I know that this doesn't have anything to do, I actually pre-ordered this, but this type of concept is coming out of the pandemic world. So like the concept of like what we do with our time, how do we like decompress, how do we live like a slow life, cottage life, etc. What I want to do is like maybe not now, but in the coming months I'll read her other novel, and then I'll read this one and talk about time and what to do with our time, how to save our time, etc. But I do think it still has to relate strongly back to all that free time that we had or we were faced with during the pandemic. Then I went thrifting for frames for my room, but then at the thrift store, Value Village in Canada, I went to the book section because I had to, and I came about these books, and these books are related and unrelated, and I'll explain why. The first book that I got is The Zombie Survival Guide by Max Brooks, and I'm reading World War Z by Max Brooks for the Last of Us reading vlog that I'm doing because that's one of the main books recommended. So this one was there and I was like, oh my god, yes, I'm gonna pick this up. It's like perfect timing. But then I also got this book. It's This Will Make You Smarter, and the reason why I got this one, and it's by, I don't know who it's by, it's like a collection edited by John Brockman. I'll link everything down below, don't worry. And one of the section was talking about germs and genes and how we think and how we navigate our world, and that's like the concepts that I'm working on in my post-pandemic apocalyptic novel. So I thought this was perfect. And then we also got A Brief History of Thought, A Philosophical Guide to Living by Luke Ferry. This also relates because when you're in a survival mode, like it's really hard to find a reason to live, you know, like either you're like really like fighting to live, or it's like what's the point of everything. And I love philosophy. I failed philosophy not because I was bad at philosophy, but because I was literally trying to myself, which is actually very on brand for someone taking philosophy. But so I'm sorry, and not to be morbid, but yeah, I really want to read this as well while I'm doing work on my novel. And then we got An Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore, and I can't believe I found this because first of all, I love Al Gore. I remember when I first heard of Al Gore and what he was doing and some of his speeches when I was in early high school years in Quebec, and I was like, wow, who is this man and why is he not the president of the United States instead of Mr. Bush there, right? Long story short, with things that are happening right now in the world with the Willow Project and environmental crises that we have and everything that's happening all together, just ties so well with what I want to write and what I want to talk about in my own novel. And finding this was like a gem. Like I was literally like hyperventilating because I was like, it could not come at the perfect time. I didn't even know that there was a book written by him that's illustrated and that's talking about our environment. And you know, all this ties back to environmental collapse, economic collapse, everything that is going wrong with our world and in our world post-pandemic as well, right? Safe to say it was too good to be true, and I can't believe I found these 4 books at the thrift store. And the last book I want to talk about and that I got, and that's a chunker, like literally a chunker, like 600 pages pure of survival and surviving, and it's a survival guide. I remember seeing this so many times when I was working at Chapters, and I was like, oh, this looks so cool, but I would never read that. But like I think I would buy it one day because I would want to read it to know how to survive, especially if I ever end up doing my dream, which is buying a cabin in the woods or buying a little house in the woods, right? That's like my dream life, my dream goal. Like that's what I'm working towards in the next few years. And now with the Last of Us, this was one of the books recommended, this freaking guide. And not only that, like, you know, it just ties back to that survival theme that I want to talk about in my book. And it was just perfect, and I got it and I started reading it already. It's a lot of information. I actually have been learning a lot of things on every page, and I can't wait to make a video on this as well for you guys to, you know, teach you some things that I've learned personally. And yeah, that's the last book that I got. I know this was a big haul, but it's done, and you know what's even worse is that I'm gonna attempt to read all of these almost this month, and I'm going to use everything for my own novel and yeah, my own purposes. So If you're interested, stick around because April is going to be the month we're going to talk pandemic, 3 years past. We're going to talk pandemic literature. We're going to talk about Last of Us. We're going to talk about the Last of Us literature. We're going to talk about survival tips. We're going to talk about all these topics. This was supposed to happen in March, but I had some crisis at home, like family crisis and family situations that prevented me from, putting my all in this research. But now I have all the books that I need. I have the time for April to literally just hyper focus on that, and I'm just like having the best time researching and reading all of this and compiling and thinking of my own novel and setting up my own novel. So if you're interested, literally the next 8 videos coming up in April will be all about this. So stick around. I'm going through the biggest mental challenge ever to do this all in 1 month, because then May is gonna come around. It's gonna be a different thing. I need to work back on my Riviera project, so that's another project that will come about on this channel. I like to always read things that are gonna inspire or formulate my writing. I don't like writing things without having any kind of research or background, so that's why this is going to be intense now. And it was supposed to go from March to April. Now we only have April left, and I really want to accomplish these goals. So if you like reading, writing, you like learning new things and all the stuff, you like self-help and you like survival guides, and all these things kind of always mesh together in my life, and that's why I started combining everything on one channel. So if you like that, if that sounds appealing to you, follow along. If you don't like that, then come back in May, because May we're gonna go back to different topics. So I feel like moving forward, this channel is probably gonna be hyper focused on different things every month or every few months. And I'm still gonna have vlogs, reading vlogs, writing vlogs, book recs, tips and mental health tips and all that, because it all comes back together to illustrate my life, my interests, and my desire to, add to the conversation that is the world, or mental health, or writing, or reading, all these spaces. And if you want to see more and follow more really day-to-day update, I'm super active on TikTok by the same handle, Sandra Shelf. And yeah, just come say hi and let's get this rolling. Let's get it started. Let's get it started. Yeah. Okay, sorry. But yeah, that's it. That's the end of it. I'll see you soon with the Last of Us reading vlog probably, and then more Last of Us recs. As always, everything else is down below. My poetry book, everything I do. If you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. I would love to have you here. All readers, non-readers, writers, non-writers, and just watchers and viewers are welcome on this channel. Basically, everyone is welcome, and I hope that you enjoy, and I'll see you very soon. Bye!